Welcome to 7.RP.3, goal number 2, part C. There is only one video for this goal, and as always, for these goals, we are just simply looking at using proportions to solve multi-step percent problems. So with this particular part, we are actually getting into those multi-step percent problems now. Looking at this, we're going to start out with this whole concept. A percent equation is what we're going to be looking at. Percent equations. This is the equivalent form of a percent proportion in which the percent is written as a decimal. So if you remember, we had that part to whole, and then we had before a percent over 100. Well, now that percent over 100 is dropped out, and instead of having the percent there and having maybe 37.5%, it's written as 0.375. So the math of 37.5 over 100, that's been done for you, and you have 0.375. That's what you're going to be looking at. So we're going to be playing around with this whole concept. Now we can see various forms of this equation. If we were actually to multiply both sides by the whole number, you might also see forms of this equation being part. The part that you're looking for is equal to the percent as a decimal times the whole number. So you can also play around. So if you needed to find essentially 75% of 100, you would have 75% written as 0.75 times 100, and you'd get the part, which is 75. So we're playing around with that sort of thing. You're going to see multiple forms. You'll see this version of the equation, and you'll see this version of the equation. You may also see another version of the equation where we're actually doing essentially part divided by the percent, which will get us the whole number. So we'll play around with that. So we need to find 62% of 75. So let's start out with this. 62% is our percent. We have our whole. So it looks like we need to find our part. So we can say essentially the part is equal to the percent written as a decimal, 0.62%, times the whole 75. So if we did the math there, 0.62 times 75, the part will be equal to 46.5. Now let's try another problem. We have to find 60% of 96. So once again, we have the percent, we have our whole, and we need to find the part. So part is equal to 0.6, that's our percent written as a fraction or as a decimal, times 96, which is 57.6. So that is our part. I should have done that in red. Oh well. So that's one way we can do it. Now we can actually look at these sort of problems. We have 287, and that is what percent of 410. So 207, this is our part. We have our percent here. We're going to see how it's written as a decimal, and 410 is our whole. So we have 287 is our percent, so we'll write x times 410. So if we were then to divide by 410, 410 on both sides, 287 divided by 410, we end up getting 0.7 as our percent, so, or as our x, I should write it, because that's what we've been using. So 0.7 as x is 70%, because we're just moving that decimal point over two places. We have 15, which is our part in this next problem. Our percent is something we don't know, so that we'll actually call that x. And our last little bit, our whole is 125. I've mixed up my colors. So we have 15 equals x times 125. So we're going to divide by 125 on the top and the bottom. So 15 divided by 125, we end up getting 0.12, which is our percent, and 0.12, which is our percent, which we could then rewrite, move over our decimal point 2 places, and we get 12%. So 15 is 12% of 125, just playing around with these problems. Last type of problem that we're going to be dealing with is 33 is 55% of what number? We can play around with our original sort of equation there where we have our original sort of equation where we have our part, our percent, and our whole. So our part number is 33. That is X, our percent, times, not X, our percent we know, which is 55, so we can write that as a decimal of 0.55, moving that over 2 decimal places, times our whole number. So I'll just write a W for that one. And now we're going to divide by 0.55 on both sides. So 33 divided by 0.55 is equal to 60, which is our whole number. So we can also say 33 is 55% of 60. Last problem here, we have 18, our part. Our percent is 30%, and our whole in this case is something we don't know, so that's our X. So 18 is 30%, 0.3% times X. So we're going to divide by 0.3, divide by 0.3. Sorry, that was written really poorly. 18 divided by 0.3. Doing it in my calculator really quick. 18 divided by 0.3, we get 60 is equal to X. So once again, 18 is 30% of 60. So we have actually the same number in these cases. That's kind of funny. Last little bit, our real world problem. So we're going to do the cube method on this, and we're going to try to figure out what we need to do. Scott wants to buy a digital video recorder that costs $250. If a 6% sales tax is added, what is the total cost? So let's circle our numbers, 250 and 6%. What is our important information that we still need to underline? Well, he's going to buy a video recorder that costs $250. It has a sales tax that is added, and then we're going to box our question, what is the total cost? So essentially, what is he going to pay with sales tax? And then we get to cross out everything else. So we have 250, we have 6%, and we need to find the total cost. So our sales tax is 6% of 250, so let's figure that out. Sales tax is, we don't know what our part is, so we have 6% times 250. So 6% can also be written as 0.06. Move that decimal point over 2 places, times 250. So 0.6 times 250 gets us $15. And so our total cost is essentially $250 plus the sales tax. 250 plus $15, which equals $265. That's how we can use percent equations in real life. Practice some problems. They start on page 360. If you have any questions, as always, please ask. I'd be happy to help. This starts to get confusing once you get into the real world problem, so please, please, please don't be vocal. Ask questions, and I hope this helps. See you later.